¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Thursday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Thursday morning. Happy almost Catterday. Good to have you here. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a good day. I am. Mr. How's it going? Howdy, howdy. Today we've got so much to go through. Let me make sure we got everything going here. Today is a climate-filled news cycle, that's for sure. To kick things off, President Joe Manchin has taken it upon himself to be the sole Democrat to vote against the Senate bill. In a 49-51 vote, the Senate fails to advance the Women's Health Protection Act, which would enshrine legal abortion nationwide ahead of the SCOTUS Supreme Court ruling, or leaked opinion. Democratic Senator and current President Joe Manchin, the last senator to vote, sided with all 50 Republicans to block debate. This wasn't even the complete vote. The Senate failed to advance a Democratic-led bill on Wednesday that would enshrine broad protections for legal abortion nationwide, a vote triggered by a leaked Supreme Court draft opinion that indicated Roe v. Wade is likely to be overturned. The Women's Health Protection Act, which passed the House, won 49 votes, falling short of the 60 senators needed to break a filibuster. All 50 Republicans and Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia voted against proceeding to debate. This wasn't even a vote on whether or not the legislation should pass. This was a vote to debate. And they couldn't even get that one done. It is a performative vote. How's it going, Tendera? All 50 Republicans voted against proceeding to debate. Moments before the vote, a group of House members appeared at the Senate side of the Capitol and chanted "My body, my decision" as they walked along the halls outside the chamber. Democratic leaders saw the vote as an opportunity to lay down a marker ahead of midterm elections as their party faces fierce headwinds from President Joe Biden's negative approval ratings to voters' concerns about inflation. I think it goes a little bit more than that, you know? Strategists in the party hope to persuade a sizable majority of Americans who want to uphold Roe v. Wade to vote Democratic. But if you have Democratic senators who are not even capable of voting to go into debates, into the debate side of the bill, then what exactly? How do you persuade people to get out and vote? You know, that's the problem. That's really the problem. And why are Dems all surprised? Pikachu face, like Manchin isn't their scapegoat for everything. They really think that all this happening will help them win. Yeah, I think that there is a part of it's misplaced, but there is a part of, I assume, Democratic leadership or strategy that is involving people getting angry enough and going to vote against Republicans. You don't have to necessarily, vote Democrat, but not vote but not side with the Republicans, right? That I think that's the strategy, but it is very ill-placed. Manchin voting yes would be political suicide. I think so. I mean, in West Virginia, it's pretty much a done deal, right? So there's that aspect of it too. How's it going, Darknet? We've got so much to cover. So let's Yeah, so basically Manchin is being forced, well, not being forced, but Manchin is essentially just there to play his part as a conservative, because that's how he won in West Virginia. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Just run as a Republican then. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Just run as Republican. Republicans in Congress, not one of whom voted for the bill, have chosen to stand in the way of Americans' rights to make the most personal decisions about their own bodies, families, and lives. Oh, President Biden said in a statement after the vote, to protect the right to choose, voters need to elect more pro-choice senators this November and return a pro-choice majority to the House. If they do, Congress can pass this bill in January and put it on my desk so I can sign it into law. Yes, but there are other alternatives that you can be pushing for at this moment. Meanwhile, and not, and not essentially coerce people to vote for us or else kind of deal, right? That sounds like that sounds like we're being shaken down. He would be a regular Republican or regular Democrat if he didn't do this. Even if the debate had taken place, would the final vote would the final vote have needed 60 votes to pass? Yes. 60 votes to pass the Senate filibuster, yes. I don't see any scenario where this isn't GG. Yeah, well. Well. I will say this, it isn't looking good. But yes, even if the debate had taken place, to overcome the filibuster, you need 60 votes to pass. Yeah. So you're saying that this bill stood no chance and was just a marker in the ground? Yeah, it was largely performative. Yes, that's exactly what I'm not. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said it was one of the most consequential votes the Senate has held in decades. For MAGA Republicans, this has always been about making abortion legal everywhere. Yeah, the key issue, I think, should be formulated around the idea of bodily autonomy, right? That's the whole rhetoric. That's what needs to be up front. It's this idea of bodily autonomy. After the vote, Schumer said Democrats are going to continue to highlight this issue relentlessly and strongly between now and November because it is so important. Okay, but like I said, this feels like we're being shaken down. It feels like we're being shaken down. Republicans in Congress, not one whom voted for the bill, and Dems, well, Joe Manchin in this case, have chosen to stand in the way of Americans' rights to make the most personal decisions about their own bodies, families, and lives. To protect the right to choose, voters need to elect more pro-choice senators this November and return a pro-choice majority to the House. If they do, wait, what? There's already a majority in the House. If they do, Congress can pass this bill in January, put it on my desk so I can sign it into law. I think that a better way of handling this issue would be to then rally the Dems and then say, listen, if you don't get this done, then we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Full funding. Do like something. Do you think that do you think that one Republican senator is going to get in the way of Mitch McConnell enacting an agenda that he wants to do? Do you think that if Mitt Romney decided to go against a Republican Senate majority, that Mitch McConnell wouldn't take him aside and be like, look, buddy, either you fall in line or X, Y, and Z? Oh, wait. It has happened before. That's exactly how Mitch McConnell does his, gets everybody in line. The difference here is that Democrats once again seem to be completely lost. Nowhere to be found. Hopefully the Republicans are on the wrong side of history. Well, by default, yes, they are. After the vote, Schumer said Democrats are going to continue to highlight this issue relentlessly and strongly between now and November because it is so important. Well, if it was so important, then you're the majority leader. Wait. You're the majority leader. Your job is to make sure that things happen in the Senate. What is the point of you being there? Before the vote, Manchin said that he would support a narrower bill to codify existing Supreme Court jurisprudence on abortion, arguing that Dems' proposal has gone too far. Make no mistake, it is not Roe v. Wade codification, it's an expansion. It expands abortion. What? How do you expand abortion? Explain that one to me. We should not be dividing this country farther than we've already divided. What? Hey, Heat, how's it going? Howdy, howdy. One second, folks. This is bothering me. He's going to tell them to water it down and then vote against it like he always does. Yeah, it seemed... Wait, we've seen this... Hold on, what is that meme? I think it's, was it a Back to the Future meme? Where he's like, oh, I've seen this one. Was it a Back to the Future meme? I'm pretty sure it was. Where he's like, yeah, I've seen this one. And it's like him watching a movie, like eating popcorn. I'm pretty sure it was the, I'm pretty sure it was a Back to the Future meme. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I heard that the bill would have struck down the bunch of state laws that have already begun to rule on women's health. I think the idea on paper is to codify basically a person's ability to choose a person's ability to choose to do what they want with their body. That's the whole idea. That's the whole crux of the argument. That is the whole crux of the argument, as to whether or not a person has the ability to choose. To do what they want with their body. This is bothering me. It should. It should bother everybody. It should bother everybody. The Supreme Court in the US is basically an RNG mechanic. Yeah, basically. I've been playing too much Overwatch. Man, I need to get back into that. I've been slacking. I've been slacking on my gaming. I've been working too hard. That's what it is. All work, no play. Ahead of the vote, Senate Democratic leaders circulated a letter from progressive and reproductive rights groups, including the Center for American Progress, NARAL, Pro-Choice America, Planned Parenthood, arguing that Collins Murkowski bill is too narrow and would not protect the right to abortion. While Dems seek to paint Republicans and their chosen conservative judges as radical, the GOP has spent recent days arguing that Dems are out of touch with most Americans who in surveys say they're favoring some restrictions on legal abortion. Okay, but that's not the crux of the argument. A Pew Research Center poll taken in March before the Supreme Court draft opinion was leaked found that 61% of adults say they want abortion to be legal, but that just 19% said it should be illegal in all cases without exception. Anyways, I can't believe this is a combo in America. The beta is awesome. I need to check that out. Come on, man. Come on, Jack. I can't believe this is a combo in America. Instead of focusing on high everything prices, baby formula shortages, student loans, education, wages, rent, we're focusing on what I do with my body. Yeah, well, you can thank the authoritarian Republican Party, and you can thank Democratic incompetence, unwillingness, inability, whatever you want to use, for the results that we've had. So, capital L for the Dems, unfortunately, as it is. Same old story, same old song and dance. We went out and voted historically and won the House and the Senate. That's right, in a Hail Mary attempt, too, only to lose only to lose more rights and get vote harder in response. I mean, like, I understand the concept behind it, but I mean, like, yeah, logically, of course, you want as much, you want as much not Republicans in power. But how do you exactly convince the populace to get out and vote when you don't deliver, right? When you seem to be part of the problem, or at least like the perception is that you are not doing anything. Like the argument, it starts to kind of get harder, to sell. It gets harder to sell to people to say, like, you got to vote for us. Okay, but like, I need receipts, right? I need some type of, you need to give people something to vote for. Save democracy, give us money and votes. Yeah. All right, we gotta get into it. No voting rights, POC getting slaughtered by police, and Pelosi and Clyburn are rallying against our interests by supporting Cuellar. We literally... yes, taxes. We literally voted for our demise. No, not really. I disagree with that. I think that... I think that it would have been pretty much... Undeniably, it would have been worse. I don't know by how much. But the point being is that, remember, the Republican Party has enacted all of this. The Democratic Party is unbelievably or either incompetent, stupid, out of touch, or just completely implicit. Either of those, or maybe a piece of everything. Maybe a little bit of everything. I don't know. What's really depressing is that there's just no, save for like a handful of folks, there's no real like organized organized opposition to strong enough organized opposition to these like GOP to these GOP legislature to the consequences of Republicans being in power, right? Because all of this happened because Republicans were in power. That's how this works. That's how this came to be. Did you see the Pelosi clip the other day? Which one? I think them being out of touch is finally going to catch up to them. This time everyone's realizing that we're voting into a void. Yeah, you're not going to sell people by just simply saying we're not Republicans. That's not good enough anymore. We need to get something for voting. Right. Same argument that I'm making. We need something to vote for. And then you need to deliver on that because, well, how are you expecting your base to come out again if you run on a certain platform and then you don't deliver, or you don't even attempt to deliver on said platform? Not even the big stuff, not a single tenant. Not a single tenant. All right, we got to get this ball rolling. This guy Brandon, that everybody seems to be talking about. Everybody seems to be cheering on this guy Brandon. Only 4 big companies control more than half of the meat market, and they can use their position to overcharge. That's why I signed an executive order on competition on competition to level the playing field, and why we're helping small meat processors, giving folks options and better prices. first of all, I'm not sure how that works because aren't a lot of small meat processors just subsidiaries of the big ones anyways? It's like this faux illusion that there's a bunch of them, but there really isn't. Is that the case for this? Because I'm pretty sure it is. Yes-ish. Okay. So I'm on. I'm hitting it kind of on the board. Maybe not on target, but kind of on the board. It's just about increasing production to lower prices. Yeah, but this is so backwards, though. He doesn't actually care about smaller producers. I don't think he does. I think he's just making it so that people don't get mad. I think it's like an act of, look, I'm trying to do something about inflation, but like the problem isn't the production. The problem isn't the production.
Get too political. You don't want me to get too political here, do you? I mean, the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody on the Senate side cares, and the Senate cares about climate?
No, they don't. They're not incentivized to care. Animal agriculture has been a dying, subsidized industry for decades. Just time to let it die. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're spending billions and billions of dollars to keep some of this stuff afloat, just like the fossil fuel industry, maybe we can move past that, you know?
Some of them do, and they talk about it. When it comes to the votes, it just isn't there. They just aren't there. So rather than saying, well, we have to defeat them, no, let's just try to persuade them.
What? Wait. Is she unironically suggesting that we persuade? That we somehow exert more influence? Somehow we are to pull out more influence than the fossil fuel industry. We're somehow supposed to magically... Okay.
I want the Republican Party to take back the party. Take it back to...
Wait. Oh man, oh god, this person is out of touch. She's so lost. She's so lost. We're going, what's the saying? We're going up Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
Where you were, where you cared about a woman's right to choose, and you cared about the environment.
They never cared about any of those things. In the entirety of your political career, not once has there been a Republican movement to care about the environment. There hasn't been a single Republican movement that cares about a woman's right to choose or bodily autonomy. There has not been a single Republican movement that cares about the environment as a party. That's not part of their platform. Like, how lost is this person? Mayhem Hippie, how's it going? How lost is this person? And why are they cheering for this? What? Why are they clapping for this? None of this is true. What? Okay. Whoa.
Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. When was this again? Oh, nice. A couple of days ago. When did the Supreme Court leak happened? Oh, good lord.
And we do. Not a cult, but a strong Republican Party.
Well, newsflash. That ain't... Yeah, progressive icon Nancy Robinette Pelosi. Truly a bastion.
So let's make this as bipartisan as possible and not, but right now, it's...
What? What? Bipartisan assumes that the people that you're working with are reasonable. Bipartisan assumes that the people that you're working with actually has the interest of the American people. They're not interested in any of that. Where did she get this from? Like, who told her to say this? Does she have some, like, portal to another dimension? Where there's, like, an alternate reality? Where there's a Republican Party? Maybe she's looking at this from, like, an alternate dimension. Where the Republican Party was actually caring about any of this? Like, how did we get to this point? Where did she get that information from?
You know, people say I signed up to be part of the climate, this or that, which means nothing unless you're going to put your vote where you're signing up it. So let's just strive.
Okay, but what? What? What is she talking about? I stole the Robinette thing from Poly People. The meme is we put Biden's middle name on other people. That's hilarious. Pelosi crazy is better than Trump crazy? I mean, yeah, but this is just wild. This is just wild. This is divorced from reality. We're not on planet Earth. We're in a completely alternate dimension.
To make it partisan.
Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Unfreaking believable. So why do I have to choose between two crazy people? I don't wanna. Well, I mean, are we doing the Pelosi's out of touch with reality content today? This was just a wonderful nugget of insight into the realities of the out of touchedness, I guess, of the Democratic Party. This was just unbelievable. We're going into like completely alternate realities where a Republican Party cares about reproductive rights, the climate, the environment, and into some weird, bizarro train of thought where we somehow need a strong Republican Party. Like, I don't a strong Republican Party would mean like full-blown authoritarianism. A strong Republican Party means a theocratic nationalistic state. That's what a strong Republican Party means. You've never seen that before? God, when she first said that, my head exploded. Yeah, I've heard that she said that before, but like, this, I have a response to not having to choose between crazy people that are meant to represent the people, but not really. But those kind of things cannot be mentioned openly. Maybe that's what she wants. I have no idea. I have no idea. Maybe. If she's so, if she's so adamant about a strong Republican Party, she's doing a wonderful job in ensuring that happens. Trying to be as charitable as possible, but I think she's trying to say that she doesn't want a one-party state, even if it's Dems. Right. I mean, that's the most charitable interpretation, but if so, then just say that, you know? Just say that. Like, listen, I don't want a one-party state. We need a diverse way of ensuring a democratic process. So, therefore, as Speaker of the House, we're going to try to push for, ranked choice voting, or we're going to try to see if we can reform the House or whatever it is within her purview to ensure that there are maybe even multiple parties. But it's just a weird framing to say that she wants a strong Republican Party and then go into some like weird la la land where the Republican Party is somehow in favor of bodily autonomy, as if somehow in some weird alternate dimension the Republican Party is in favor of climate action or environmentalism. So, like, that's kind of like what makes that fall apart for me. She's trying to keep the Overton window from shifting even just a little bit to the left. Pushing for new voting systems would be amazing. She needs to retire 8 years ago. Phew. Ain't that the truth? But like, my whole point is that like, even if we're trying to interpret it as she wanting to, say that there's a necessity for multiple parties or whatever, or if there's like, if she doesn't want a one-party state, then just say that and give solutions to that she's capable of enacting within her purview. But she was very explicit about, or adamant, I should say, about, like, the Republican Party. I don't know. Has Nancy been aggressively edited? No, she doesn't need to be. There's no cuts here. Look.
I mean, the fossil fuel industry cared about a woman's right to choose, and you cared about the environment, and all.
That's not cut. That's a straight, like a complete straight on. That's not cut or edited. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. She didn't specify a woman's right to choose.
Then saying, well, we have to defeat them. No, let's just try to persuade them. I want the Republican Party to take back the party. Take it back to where you were, where you cared about a woman's right to choose, and you cared about the environment.
Yeah, but she's deluding herself into thinking that the Republican Party ever had these axioms. She didn't specify a woman's right to choose what. Ah, yes, that's right. You do know that the latest video technology can alter voices, faces, and backgrounds to make unreal fake videos? Yeah, but that's a stretch. I mean, that is a very, very, very hard stretch coming from a news organization YouTube channel. Like, maybe I could entertain that idea if it was like some rando like YouTube channel, but it's not. It's from like a news organization. Yeah, maybe she's advocating for a woman's right to choose her health insurance provider. Pelosi needs to go on that. I think the entire U.S. population agrees. True. I've seen manufactured videos of completely fake events. Yeah, that does happen. But not. But usually you have to check where these videos are posted. You tend to think that a news organization would at least do, 5 seconds of research here. I do agree. Pelosi needs to go. That's for sure. That's for sure. Pelosi needs to go. At some point, we've got to get new leadership. That's just wild. You can't get rid of Mama Bear. Oh my god, that is so cringy. The fact that that is a thing. That is a thing. It's so cringy. Oh my god. Yikes. Well. So tired of all these politicians make decisions on the future that they will never see. Well, the issue isn't the fact that they make decisions on the futures that they never, will never see. The fact of the matter is that they don't care that about the consequences, because that's their job. Their job is to make decisions, even if they're not going to live to see it. But their job is to make decisions for the for a future that they will never see, but to make it so that it is as best to give the best outcomes as possible. That's literally their job. This made the rounds on news channels at the time of the event where she was speaking. She'd have said something about it if it was fake. The consequences don't matter if they get paid enough not to care about them. That's true. From now on, you have to factor in that any video is being altered in real time. Yeah, but there's yeah, but nah, I don't think that this is altered in any way, shape, or form. Politicians have to want to leave. No, I think politicians don't want... politicians don't get to choose when they leave. I think that there should be a better way of handling this so that one person isn't in Congress for like, I don't know, decades and decades and decades, you know? Maybe we could do something about that. That's within our purview. Yeah, the best outcome for their pocket. Meaning they need to go. There needs to be term limits. They're too old and out of touch and greedy. And that affects my child's future, not theirs. That's a good point. There's various ways of doing this. Oh yeah, I understand, Astro, but there's just no way that this is edited. I tend to err on the side of like, news organizations, especially if it's being reposted by other news organizations. Unless everybody got it wrong, in which case, I mean. But no, this is true. This is legit. And it's not the first time she's said that we've needed a strong Republican Party before. So, unfortunately, it checks. Yeah, term limits is a thing, but I think we need to add on something else to that. Like, the way you get more democratic outcomes is simply by, well, I saw a video of Biden and Putin dancing with each other. That's interesting. Not sure if it was real. Pay control and lobbying needs to go. I think lobbying needs to be heavily regulated or just outright done away with. Not sure if it was real though. Everything is possible, I guess, but at some point we just need to acknowledge that, reality is as such. Reality is as such. We the people need to stick together to get this done. Yeah, that would be nice. For democracy, for a more healthier democratic system, you need transparency. You need transparency, strong institutions, and inclusivity. That's just the way it works. Often disappointing, yeah. The era of guaranteed reality has gone forever. Not necessarily. There are ways of making sure that what you're watching is legit, You can't get rid of lobbying, but you can get rid of money in politics. You can certainly do a lot you can certainly do a lot about that. Getting rid of money in politics probably involves more regulations. Ooh, sorry. More campaign donation regulations and things like that. More transparency. Like maybe meetings with large corporations, meetings with CEOs, meetings with large lobby groups should be aired. That would be nice to know. Who's meeting with who? But yeah, these are just small things that we can do. Now, actually. But yeah, good memes. Nancy Pelosi telling everybody that we need a... What just happened? Jared Cardenas rating with a party of one. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Howdy, howdy. Lobbying isn't just bribing politicians. Lobbying is also writing to your politicians and addressing grievances with them. Lobbying shouldn't be banned, but we should more heavily regulate it and get dark money groups out of politics. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if it's not outright just like banned, then it should be heavily regulated, you know? Because like lobbying could also fall into like unions and stuff like that, and we don't want to take that power away necessarily. Lobbying isn't just, yes, the only way to eliminate lobbying is to permanently sequester Congress. Anyways, good meme. Thanks, Nancy, for telling us that we need a strong Republican Party to enact some kind of theocratic, nationalistic state. That's really what we need. Icing on the cake, folks. We've got a leaked draft. a leaked Supreme Court draft saying that, you know, they're on the cusp of eliminating bodily autonomy for folks. And we've got Nancy Pelosi calling for a stronger party to enact things like that. Okay. Good meme. Good meme. Just know the FBI is looking into it. I wish I knew what that meant. Here's some good news. Here's some cool, awesome news. Also rewriting history. Shameful, yeah. Serious question, why shouldn't abortion rights be an exception to the filibuster? Dems are fine with filibuster exceptions to raise the debt ceiling, so why not save Roe? Good question. You're gonna need to ask Brandon why he isn't calling for all the Dems to come together and do something in the legislature. You also have to call on Chuck Schumer to rally the Dems to carve out that procedural exception in the Senate, because that's where it is. Chucky has the authority there, I think. You can also call on, well, to be fair, the House did pass it, all right? The House did pass it. So the two main key players here are Chuck Schumer and the president, because the president is you know, the face. The president is the face, and if he isn't out there trying to at least look like he's out there trying to rally the party to do X, Y, or Z, then, you know, what's the point? Real-time video manipulation technology is both impressive and terrifying. Yep. His name has mansion in it. Yep. I guess it's just fundraising election tactics, but that may be just too pessimistic. Yeah, I don't disagree. I believe, in fact, there have been an increased campaigning for funds and election ads and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I agree. I agree, Astro. All of this is possible and has happened. Yes, I agree. It failed in the Senate. Yeah, we couldn't even get to the debate stage of it. All I know is that I'm not donating one penny to the Dems till they actually start acting right. Oh man. Yeah, that kind of stopped for me after I think the primary. Climate change-linked droughts have increased dramatically since 2000. No way. if you don't have Manchin's vote, you can't get rid of or alter the filibuster at all. He's pro-life, so he's definitely not going to vote to alter it for abortion rights. Yeah, the only other solution would then be the only play would be to get more pro-life Dems into the Senate to override that. But then, how do you tell people to vote for the party in this manner? How do you tell people to vote for the party when you've got like party leadership completely rudderless? Nancy Pelosi calling for a strong Republican Party. I mean, it's hard. I hear people saying we rarely gotta back the Dems now or else. Oh, we really gotta back the Dems now or else. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the play would be to get more progressive folks to override people like Manchin. The problem is, number one, we don't have that. We don't have like strong progressive candidates running in the Senate, except for maybe like one. All right, maybe like a couple. All right, I shouldn't lie. Maybe a couple who are running for the Senate, and we've got to also cross our fingers and hope they don't get snuffed. And hope they don't get snuffed by the by their own party, essentially. I mean, like I said, the play would be, in an ideal scenario, it would be Chuck Schumer getting together with Manchin and being like, look, buddy, you need to play ball or X, Y, and Z. We need to have President Biden out there continuously calling on Chuck Schumer to rally the Dems, continuously to be like, hey, you need to carve out this exception every single day, every day of the week. Make ads if Joe Biden needs to. Make ads calling on Chuck Schumer specifically to rally the Dems in the Senate constantly. We need to have progressives win primaries or win enough senatorial seats to pass that Manchin problem. Don't they need 60% of majority? Well, if Chucky rallies the Dems, they can carve out with simple majority. With a simple majority, they can carve out what they need for procedural, nonsense in the Senate. They can do that with simple majority. And if they can carve out the exception there and then have the, simple majority to do, codification of Roe, for example, they could do it that way. But I don't see, Joe Biden consistently calling on, exactly, Senate rules only require a simple majority, which they technically have up till this time. So it's really on Chucky to get out there and rally the Dems to make sure that they play ball, and it's really up to Joe Biden to put pressure on Senator Schumer to do that, to get that done. The House already passed it. The House passed that bill already. It's on Chuck Schumer. This looks familiar. I remember this. I do a lot of drugs and psychosis and psychedelics. Imagine the 80s, was it? But people did a lot of crack, pour water on the mountains. If they put enough pressure on him, he'll just flip parties. Then yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, in an ideal scenario, then you would just make sure that you have enough to supersede that, right? That's really what would be ideal. But given what given the hand we're dealt with, it's basically either well, it's actually it should be a double pronged attack, right? It should be pressure from Chuck Schumer, pressure from Biden to Chuck Schumer, and there should be a on the ground movement to try to get more folks to win, more progressive leaning folks to win primaries. An example would be Cisneros, right? An example would be Cisneros. But, you know, how hard is it? it starts to get really hard, you know, when you got, like I said, Democratic leadership completely rudderless, lost in space, completely lost in space, nowhere to be found. Or is he a scapegoat? Yeah, I guess. Cinema and Manchin are the rotating villains, right? I think in particular Manchin, because like Manchin is just such a perfect illustration of what the problem is here, right? He's such a perfect illustration of what the problem is. All right, folks, we gotta put this train back on the tracks. Climate change-linked droughts have increased. Oh wait, no more sake bombs, all right? Out. Climate change links have droughts have increased dramatically since 2000. Thanks in part to climate change, number and frequency of droughts on the planet have increased by 29% in the past 22 years, according to the UN report released on Wednesday. As a result, roughly 1/3 of the Earth's population, which, to put it in perspective, that's 2.3 billion people, now face the risk of water scarcity. If Manchin swaps party, what actually changes? Not really. What the Dems need to do is all come together and tell Manchin to vote in favor of getting rid of the filibuster, in favor of constitutional amendments for abortion, where the entire party will fund its primary opponents. Yeah, I don't think... I mean, you could try that. I would like to see some effort, you know? I would like to see some effort like that and see what happens. And if he switches parties, then, I mean, okay. If he switches parties, then okay. Oh no, what a big loss. The Democrats lose control of the Senate. Yes. That is true. However, fundamentally, I don't see... I mean, it is... Well, the only thing that would be... different is that at least the Dems get to kind of set the agenda on the Senate, whereas like Mitch McConnell would literally just table all bills. He wouldn't even bring anything up for votes. So I guess like that's something. But I don't know. And that's a big deal. Right, like I said, it does matter, and it does factor into some things, but at the same time, it's like, you gotta act like we're you know, you got to act like we're trying to do something here. And nothing actually changes in a midterm, and even if Manchin did switch parties. Yeah, I mean, like, well, I will say this, I don't think the Dems are looking very good this midterm, so it may not even end up mattering, unfortunately. The Dems would not immediately lose that house. It wouldn't happen until the midterms. Yeah, that's true. If you think McConnell would have held hearings and a vote on Biden's Supreme Court nomination, you're mistaken. Yeah, of course. Undeniably. Yes, that would be true. Or maybe the Dems could get Manchin impeached. No way. No shot. No shot. It is easier. It is a more feasible path to get more progressive Dems it is a more feasible path to get more progressive Dems elected than it would be to impeach Joe Manchin. I just don't see it. Make him resign or primary him in the Democratic primary in West Virginia? Maybe. So you got to put some kind of pressure. And if not, then figure out what other avenues you have. By, like, again, the only path would be you need more to supersede, a mansion and a cinema. But that requires you having, people get out there and vote for you, right? Manchin seems like the kind of dude to have skeletons in his closet. Maybe. I don't care how, but the Dems need to put the screws to Manchin. Yeah, sure. In whatever ways, or at least, Jesus Christ, at least act like you're doing something. Sheesh. Well. Like I said, completely rudderless. Up Schitt's Creek without a paddle is what we're looking at here, folks. In such a unfathomably bad time to be acting this way, to have opposition leadership acting this way. Alright. Let's put the train back on the tracks, folks. As a result, roughly 1/3 of the Earth's population, 2.3 billion people, now face the risk of water scarcity. The facts and figures of this publication all point in the same direction: an upward trajectory in the duration of droughts, the severity of impacts not only affecting human societies but also the ecological systems upon which the survival of all life depends, including that of our own species. Nice. Good memes. This also is to kind of piggyback on that whole massive drought that's still going on. Said Ibrahim Thaya, Executive Secretary of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, said in a statement, droughts like the one gripping the American Southwest, where water restrictions have been imposed in states like California and Arizona and reservoir levels continue to fall, heading into dry summer months, are being felt across the globe. A severe drought in the Horn of Africa has put the lives of millions of people in Somalia at risk. A combination of drought and an intense heat dome that has lingered over parts of Pakistan and India is threatening the current wheat harvest and putting millions more lives in danger. Thanks to a series of drought years, Australia's agriculture industry registered economic declines of 18% between 2002 and 2010. Yikes. Oh my god. Jesus. I see they're actually starting to call it desertification now. Yeah. In Arizona, at least, the water problems are due to dairy farmers in the middle of the state taking advantage of lax water regulations. The average home here doesn't have a lawn with grass. That's I could see that. France has seen a 25% drop in rainfall since the start of April, accompanied by a rise in normal temperatures not usually experienced until summer. France 24 reported with dire consequences for crops like corn, sunflower, and beets. So very quickly, we ended up in a critical situation before the summer has even started. Hydrologist Emma Haziza told France 24. Numerous studies have established a link between rising global temperatures and drought. Yeah. Hotter temperatures speed up evaporation, reducing the amount of available surface water, drying out crops and other plants. The hotter it gets, the quicker the reaction plays out, raising the risk of wildfires that can feed off dried out vegetation. We are at a crossroads, Diaz said in a statement. We need to steer towards solutions rather than continuing with destructive actions, believing that marginal change can heal systemic failure. True. I just posted a documentary in the Discord about the dairy industry in New Zealand. Sheesh. Okay. Oh, these ads are gonna... If you guys want to check it out, here's the direct link. Join the Discord. You'll also see it there as well. The UNCCD report offers a grim warning about what humanity will face if it does not work to try to prevent the future degradation of soil caused by climate change. By the year 2030, the report states an estimated 700 million people will be at risk of being displaced by drought. That's just that one aspect of it. Think about that. That is just but one aspect of it. By 2040, roughly 1 in 4 children are expected to live in places that will experience extreme water shortages. And by 2050, That's 28 years from now, which is not that long, folks. Not that long. The prevalence of droughts will mean that between 4.8 and 5.7 billion people will live in areas that are water scarce for at least 1 month of each year. Yeah. That's wild. Key to avoiding this fate, climate scientists say, is replacing fossil fuel sources of energy across the world with renewables. There has been some encouraging news on that front. In April, for instance, the US generated 20% of the country's electricity from wind and solar, a record high. That's good, I guess. I mean, it is good, but nowhere near enough. Yet the effort to transition to renewables coincides with rising greenhouse gas emissions. Without dramatically reducing these emissions, scientists warn there's little hope of keeping temperature from rising more than 1.5 above pre-industrial levels. Beyond that threshold, evaporation rates would also rise dramatically, raising the odds of more crippling droughts. A report released on Tuesday by the Met Office, the Meteorological Service of the United Kingdom, put the odds at 50-50. Jesus Christ. Flip of a coin, folks. Flip of a coin of how catastrophic climate change is going to happen. Put the odds at 50-50 that mankind can make the sweeping changes needed to keep average global temperatures from surpassing the 1.5 degrees Celsius marker in the next 5 years. Oh boy. That's just horrifying. I'm betting on 1.5 by next year. There is a possibility that we could reach that, even if it's for a brief moment, within the next couple of years, actually. It is possible. In which case, I hope you put all your money into water futures against. I hope you put all your money betting against the availability of water in the market. You know. I hope you put all your millions betting against the market, betting against the availability of water. Our good friends ExxonMobil doubled down on advanced recycling claims that yield few results. So, Jesus, look at this picture. Let's take a look at what large companies, large corporations are going to do to solve this issue. Accused of misleading the public for decades on the promise of plastic recycling, oil and chemical companies are pushing a new idea, advanced recycling. Cool. You see, because it has advanced in it, so it's better. Environmental advocates, however, say it's more of the same old greenwash, and litigators hope to hold companies accountable for past lies might prevent the spread of a new one. In late April, California Attorney General Rob Bonta launched an investigation into ExxonMobil for its role in exacerbating the global plastic pollution crisis. Bonta said he was partly inspired by a 2020 investigation from NPR and Frontline that showed how companies like ExxonMobil, Chevron, Dow, and DuPont were aware of the inefficacy of plastic recycling, and yet they still strategized marketing campaigns to hold a different story to the public. No way, large companies lying? No way. For oil companies, those campaigns often including removing themselves from the story altogether. Even some climate advocates forget that plastic, which is made from either petroleum or ethane, a byproduct of fracking, is very much part of the climate crisis. Bonta says his investigation started with ExxonMobil because they've been a leader in the plastic industry and in the messaging around recycling. A report out last year from the Minna Drew Foundation found that just 100% companies produce 90% of the world's plastic pollution. Oh, plastic pollution, okay. It pinpointed ExxonMobil as the top producer in the world of single-use plastic. Sheesh. Yikes. In a statement responding to the investigation, oh, here we go, Exxon said it's focused on solutions like building the first commercial-scale advanced recycling technology and meritless allegations. What? What does that mean? And meritless allegations like these distract from the important collaborative work that is underway. Yeah, okay. Sure thing, bud. But like regular old recycling, advanced recycling has so far shown little to no results. Oh man. Also known as pyrolysis or chemical recycling, the process entails using various chemical processes to turn plastic into other materials. The most common approach is warming plastic at a very high heat and turning it into a low-grade fossil fuel, which then can be used as either as fuel or as feedstock for more plastic. But wouldn't that also have issues with emissions too? The technology is still in its infancy, but early studies have found that like earlier versions of plastic recycling, the advanced method is expensive and it is difficult to collect and effectively recycle a wide variety of plastics. It also delivers few environmental benefits, not just because it's used to create either fuel or more plastic, which then perpetuates the issue, but also because the process itself is emissions intensive. Wait, what? Yeah. Okay, so, yeah. One study commissioned by plastic manufacturers themselves found that advanced recycling generated more greenhouse gases than either landfilling plastic or just burning it. Jesus Christ. Look, guys, I'm helping. Oh, man. The American Chemistry Council, or ACC, a trade group for the chemical industry, has been pushing advanced recycling since China shut its borders to used plastic in 2018. The group has also been lobbying state government to exempt the recycling process from various environmental regulations. Wait, why? Is it, oh my god, this is just so horrible. 18 states have laws on the books that either sidestep certain government oversight or designate advanced recycling facilities as eligible for subsidies. It's part of a strategy former Exxon lobbyist Keith McCoy called getting ahead of the government intervention in a video interviewed with Greenpeace-funded investigative journalism site Unearthed in 2021. The journalist went undercover as a corporate recruiter and got McCoy talking about various lobbying strategies on climate change. The issue is going to be disposal and recycling of plastics, McCoy said in a previously unpublished portion of the interview that were shared with The Guardian. He also noted that the ACC has been working on this issue almost exclusively because federal regulators are talking about banning plastics, and a lot of it has to do with plastics in the ocean and waterways. Yeah, which are also horrible. A new report out this week from the groups Beyond Plastics and the Last Beach Cleanup found that plastic recycling rates have actually fallen in the US since the emergence of advanced recycling in 2018 from its highest ever point of 9% to less than 6% today, compared with the 66% recycling rate for paper. They're finally kind of admitting that recycling hasn't worked. Beyond Plastics President Judith Enck said of groups like ACC and its members have been lobbying against environmental protections, and it doesn't work by design. It's not like they're surprised by us. They knew it wouldn't, all along it wouldn't work. Right, because it's a PR stunt, essentially, and a way of probably continuing the reliance or dependence of fossil fuels. That's why they do it. Unbelievable. And it doesn't work by design. It's not like they're surprised by us. They knew all along it wouldn't work. And the plastic pollution crisis isn't likely to let up. As Bonta noted in his investigation, the fossil fuel industry has spurred the expansion of plastic for years to come. It's their plan B as we reduce the use of fossil fuels in transportation and buildings. He said the International Energy Agency said that this as well, predicting that plastic production, which is forecasted to double by 2040, will be the biggest growth market for the oil industry over the next decade. McCoy noted that oil companies like his former employer, ExxonMobil, were uniquely suited to handle the increased scrutiny on plastics because they could use the same strategy they have deployed on climate change. You want to get smart on it because you know it's coming. This is just wild. Environmental sociologist Dr. Rebecca Altman, author of the forthcoming book An Intimate History of Plastics, points to the history of Exxon's forefather, Standard Oil, as one of the 4 original companies that created the modern petrochemical industry. Mobil Oil also introduced the plastic grocery bag to the American stores. They really commercialized that and took on the paper bag, which was sort of the last bastion of paper in the US supermarket by the 70s. That meant Mobil was also entrenched in various PR battles that the chemical and energy industries were dealing with in the 70s. The petrochemical industry was really trying to figure out, how do we show our positive value? Man. And the answer was positive advertising and then working behind the scenes on energy policy and dealing with the first wave of environmental legislation. And then, in the 80s and 90s, you have this big recycling boom. Bonta said he'd love to see advanced recycling work, but right now it's just words on paper. A 2021 Reuters investigation found several examples of failed advanced recycling programs, noting that out of 30 projects operating around the world, all were either still operating on a modest scale or had shut down, and more than half were years behind schedule on previously announced commercial plans. Jeez. A report from Natural Resource Defense Council, published in March, noted that even when it works, advanced recycling is not an environmentally friendly solution. Right, the solution would be essentially to not use single-use like plastics made from oil-based. I mean, fossil fuel-based. That's it. That's the solution. Stop. Just stop production of that, and use other renewable, sustainable materials. Bonta said that his investigation will include not only what the industry said about recycling in the past, but also the way it is marketing advanced recycling today. The inquiry may very well broaden to include other companies or trade groups like the ACC. We'll go where the documents lead us as to whether the investigation might become a lawsuit. That's absolutely a possibility. We're not investigating just to investigate. Well, I mean, I guess the plus side of this is that it shows that there are avenues that can be taken should we put the pedal to the metal as another avenue, another prong to kind of work on this. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty much comfortable with the idea of nationalizing the energy companies, the fossil fuel companies. Oh, here's an interesting update. I doubt this is going to go anywhere, but Elizabeth Warren and Representative Pramila Jayapal introduced a bill that would ban federal judges from trading individual stocks to avoid conflict of interest and tighten restrictions on gifts they can receive and privately funded events they can attend. I mean, on paper, I think this is a good idea. The Judicial Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act contains several provisions aimed specifically at the Supreme Court. They would create a binding requirement for judges in the Supreme Court to adhere to the court's code of conduct. The Supreme Court is the only court in the country that isn't bound by ethics guidelines, which is wild. And the court watchdog said that all 9 judges are culpable of some kind of oversight. At a time when public trust in the Supreme Court has collapsed to historic lows, it is critical that we enact legislation to reform this broken system. From banning federal judges from owning individual stocks to overhauling the broken judicial recusal process, my bill would help root out corruption and restore public trust in the federal judiciary, something that Chief Justice John Roberts has simply failed to do. Under the bill, Supreme Court judges would have to issue a written recusal decision when a litigant requests recusal, and the Judicial Conference, which oversees federal courts, would have to issue advisory opinions on recusals. I mean, like I said, on the surface of this sounds good. We would need definitely some type of guardrails as well. The fact that the SCOTUS is not bound by ethic guidelines is amazing but unsurprising. Yeah, it blew my mind. It blew my mind when I found that out. So broken. This provision is especially relevant in the current applications toward Justice Clarence Thomas, who has been under increased scrutiny due to his wife's role in the far-right attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Yeah, and like, it's not just that his wife... Oh yeah, no, I don't see this flying. That's why I said on paper it sounds good, but I don't see this flying anywhere. Yes, because like the issue isn't just that his wife is a QAnon like cultist who had a significant hand in rallies and all this stuff and planning rallies consistently. When it comes to the Stop the Steal movement, she was very involved in all of that. The issue is that when cases came up, I believe in one particular incident, Justice Thomas, in a case that whether or not documents had to be given up, happened to be texts from his wife or emails from his wife, and he did not recuse himself. He did not recuse himself. There is a blatant conflict of interest because it is just unfathomable to me that a wife and husband had no influence on each other whatsoever. Because no way Clarence Thomas's wife's insurrection supporting is going to be held accountable. Yes, I don't see that happening. Warren and Jayapal had previously requested that Thomas be recused from cases related to the January 6th coup attempted coup, or otherwise related to that election. I think that would be a fair ask, especially since his wife's name continues to be coming up. It's just a massive conflict of interest. This wouldn't happen in any other scenario, right? Like, can you imagine if you go up to like a judge, and a judge refuses to recuse themselves because like some documents had their partner's name on it? There's just no way. That's just not a thing. But for some weird reason, the highest court does have that ability to skirt ethic guidelines. That is just wild. The bill would also improve disclosure requirements regarding case assignments and bar courts from sealing case records related to public health or safety. Yeah, transparency is good. Transparency is good. You don't get it. The person I've chosen to spend my entire life with has no influence on my views or rulings whatsoever. No, not at all. Not a single thing. In fact, they don't talk about it at dinner. They don't even mention it. They never see each other. There's no communication whatsoever, in any way, in any capacity. A new poll released on Tuesday by Yahoo News/YouGov found that 53% of Americans have little to no confidence in the Supreme Court. Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Bet they even sleep in separate beds, yeah. No kidding. When you've had repeated justices say that they're not going to touch precedent, and then here they are ready to overturn massive precedent, yeah, that could kind of torpedo the trust, the confidence in the alleged highest court, you know? That might have something to do with it. In intervening time between 2020 poll and the most recent polls, Republicans gained a supermajority in the Supreme Court. Yeah, that's a good framing of it, because whether they want to admit it or not, this is undoubtedly skewed, ideologically skewed. There's absolutely ideologically driven justices, conservative justices. Since then, they have taken increasingly radical steps, including potentially overturning Roe v. Wade, as a leaked draft opinion from the court appears to suggest that conservative judges are poised to do. Yep, agreed. Like I said, in theory, the idea sounds good to me, but who knows? That's not going to fly anywhere, in my opinion. A 67-foot pipeline ruptured in Texas, triggered massive methane plume. No way! A pipeline ruptured longer than a bowling lane was responsible for a massive release of the potent greenhouse gas methane over Texas in March. Damn, this happened a couple months ago. What? Why is this only being reported now? Spewing the equivalent of annual emissions from 16,000 American cars into the atmosphere. Photos of the rupture show nearly a 67-foot long tear along the 16-inch diameter Big Cowboy natural gas pipeline excavated from a dirt road in a remote corner of Texas. The images were obtained through a public information request to the Railroad Commission of Texas, the regulator that oversees oil and gas production in the state. The pipeline operator, the unit of Energy Transfer LP, has said in regulatory filings that the rupture resulted in at least 52.15 million cubic feet of gas. Jesus. Big Cowboy is part of a vast web of gathering lines in the U.S. that have operated outside the purview of federal authorities because historically they were smaller diameter, low-pressure lines deemed less of a risk than transmission conduits that cross state boundaries. But the massive gas release in March underscores how the failure of even small parts of the U.S. gas network can have profound consequences for the climate. Yeah, and this idea that like pipelines are safe or pipelines are good, and it's okay, it's just nonsense. They absolutely have and repeatedly leaked because of, well, they're in private hands, and generally speaking, upkeep and maintenance on these things are just deemed not worthy because it cuts into profit. A pipeline likely experienced longitudinal seam rupture failure based on the photos, although scientific metallurgical forensic analysis is needed to confirm that assessment, said Richard Kuprowitz, a chemical engineer and president of AccuFacts Inc., which specializes in gas and liquid pipeline investigations. The only way to reliably avoid that sorts of failures is to perform a spike hydro test, which isn't mandated for gathering lines under federal requirements. Jesus. Energy Transfer disputed Krupowitz's assessment and said that it has ruled out a longitudinal seam rupture as a cause without saying why. What? The pipe was strength tested at 1.25 times its maximum allowable operating pressure in 1993 before it entered service. That's 1993 though. The Energy Transfer Unit detected a failure in its control center at 8:35 a.m. local time, March 17th, and the system was shut in and isolated by 8:45. Workers reached the site of failure at 1:23 p.m. the same day, according to incident report obtained through public information request. The pipeline was repaired and restarted March 20. The damaged section of the pipeline has also been sent to a lab for analysis, and an investigation into what caused the failure is underway. The incident report describes the apparent cause of rupture as unknown and didn't attribute the failure to corrosion. The release was about 60 miles southeast of the estimated source location of a severe cloud of methane spotted by European Space Agency's satellite. Jesus. On March 17th at 2:23 p.m. local time, according to an analysis of the observation by the Kairos SAS, the estimated emission rate for the plume of 147 metric tons of methane an hour makes it the worst French geoanalytics company has attributed to the U.S. attributed to the U.S. oil and gas sector in more than a year. Yikes. Giga yikes. Reason number 243,553 million as to why we need to get off these things. And just like that, 16,000, the equivalent of 16,000 American cars of emissions were just poured into the atmosphere. Just like that, in the blink of an eye. For all intents and purposes. Unfathomable that this is still allowed to continue. The carbon bomb set to trigger catastrophic breakdown. Hey, more good news. The world's biggest fossil fuel firms are quietly planning scores of carbon bomb oil and gas projects that would drive the climate past internationally agreed temperature limits with catastrophic global impacts. So despite all of the PR and rhetoric that we've seen from the fossil fuel industry, the exact opposite is what they're planning, right? The exact opposite is what's being planned here. The exclusive data shows that these firms are in effect placing multi-billion-dollar bets against humanity, halting global heating. Their huge investments in new fossil fuel production could pay off only if countries fail to rapidly slash carbon emissions, which scientists say is vital. The oil and gas industry is extremely volatile but extraordinarily profitable, especially when prices are high as they are at present. ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, Chevron have made almost $2 trillion in profits in the past 3 decades, while recent prices led BP's boss to describe the company as a cash machine. Yeah. These folks don't need any help. These folks don't need any subsidies. What needs to happen here is clearly they're in my opinion, a threat to national security, and I think that at this point in time, they should be nationalized. Full stop. The lure of colossal payouts in the years to come appears to be irresistible to oil companies. No way. A private company? What? Looking for profits? At whatever means? No way. Up to and including destroying the environment, destroying the planet? But think of the profits, yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you know what? That is a hard sell. Despite the world's climate scientists stating in February that further delay in cutting fossil fuels would mean missing our last chance to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. As the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned the world leaders in April, our addiction to fossil fuels is killing us. Yes, that is true. Details of the projects being planned are not easily accessible, but an investigation published in The Guardian shows that the fossil fuels industry's short-term expansion plans involves the start of oil and gas projects that will produce greenhouse gas equivalent to a decade of CO2 emissions from China, the world's biggest polluter. These plans include 195 carbon bombs, gigantic oil and gas projects that would each result in at least 1 billion tons of CO2 emissions over their lifetimes, and equivalent to about 18 years of current global CO2 emissions. About 60% of these have already started pumping. Nice. Good stuff. Good stuff. The dozen biggest oil companies are on track to spend $103 million a day for the rest of the decades exploiting new fields. That's right. Exploiting new fields of oil and gas that cannot be burned if global heating is to be limited to well under 2 degrees Celsius. What? That's weird. Okay. Seriously, though, the Biden administration is approving new leases for oil and gas drilling in the Gulf? Yeah. That's a problem. The 1.5 is looking like a goal to hit rather than avoid. Well, it is the goal, but not gonna lie, it doesn't look good. The Middle East and Russia often attract the most attention in relation to future oil and gas production, but the US, Canada, and Australia are among the countries with the biggest expansion plans and the highest number of carbon bombs. The US, Canada, and Australia also give some of the world's biggest subsidies for fossil fuels per capita. Nice. At the UN's COP26 climate summit in November, after a quarter century of annual negotiations that have as of yet failed to deliver a fall in global emissions, countries around the world finally included the word coal in their concluding decisions. Ah, yes. So glad that they decided to entertain that idea. Even this belated mention of the dirtiest fossil fuel was fraught, leaving a deeply sorry COP president Alok Sharma fighting back tears on the podium after India announced a last-minute softening of the need to phase out coal to phase down coal. This is so wild. Well, on the track that we're heading, Fu Manchu, 3 degrees Celsius sounds sounds quite possible. Quite possible. Yay. Nonetheless, the world agreed coal power was history. The question was how quickly cheaper renewables could replace it and how fair the transition would be for the small number of developing countries that still relied on it. But there's no mention of oil and gas in the COP26 final deal, despite these being responsible for almost 60% of fossil fuel emissions. Furthermore, many of the rich countries, such as the US, that dominate international climate diplomacy, or lack thereof, I guess, and position themselves as climate leaders at the conference. That's a good meme. Are now big players in new oil and gas projects, so then we're not positioned as climate leaders at all. But unlike India, they avoided criticism. Cool, must be nice. The lack of scrutiny prompted The Guardian to spend the months since COP26 piecing together the clearest picture possible of the forthcoming oil and gas exploration and production. The world's scientists agree that the planet is in deep trouble. In August, Guterres reacted strongly to a stark report by the IPCC, the world's leading authority on climate change. This report is a code red for humanity. Yeah, it's been that way. The IPCC states carbon emissions must fall by half by 2030 to preserve the chance of a livable future, and yet show no signs of declining. Experts have been warning since April. Sorry, I'm doing something else here. Experts have been warning since at least 2011 that most of the world's fossil fuel reserves could not be burned without causing catastrophic global heating. This is 2011, folks. All right. This was 10 years ago that we had undisputable knowledge that, we just cannot continue down this path. In 2015, a high-profile analysis found that to limit global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius, half of known oil reserves and a third of gas had to stay on the ground, along with 80% of coal. Today, the problem is even more acute. A better understanding of the devastating impact of the climate crisis has led to internationally agreed limit of global heating being lowered to 1.5 to cut the risks of extreme heat waves, droughts, and floods. In May 2021, a report from the International Energy Agency, previously seen as a conservative body, concluded that there could be no new oil or gas fields or coal mines if the world was to reach net zero by 2050. Yeah. More warnings soon followed. An updated scientific analysis found the proportion of fossil fuel reserves that would need to stay in the ground for 1.5 jumped to 60% for oil and gas and 90% for coal, while the UN warned that planned fossil fuel production vastly exceeds the limit needed for 1.5 degrees Celsius. In April, shocked by the latest IPCC report that said it was now or never to start slashing emissions, Guterres launched an outspoken attack on companies and governments whose climate actions did not match their words. Simply put, they are lying. True. That's no other way of saying it. And the results will be catastrophic. Also true. He said investing in new fossil fuel infrastructure is moral and economic madness. Agreed. 100%. Climate activists are sometimes depicted as dangerous radicals. But the truly dangerous radicals are the countries that are increasing the production of fossil fuels. Agreed, 100%. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. What is really egregious is the continuation of the one thing that is one of the things that is a huge factor in the destruction of the planet. Essentially. The reaction to Russia's war in Ukraine has pushed oil and gas prices even higher, further incentivizing bets on new fields and infrastructure that would last decades. I mean, like, this is so backwards. Like, if you understand that there are issues with relying on oil, like, you know, for example, if the Ukraine and Russia conflict, right? Wouldn't the better solution then be like, okay, well, we understand that this is not a good thing to be reliant on. What alternatives can be taken? How much and how fast can we get ourselves to energy independent? That should be the question. But instead, we have decided that we're going to double down. We made the value of the USD dependent on the value of oil decades ago. Without that, we could have made more progress towards renewables. Agreed. The petrodollar, yes. But at this point, I think that it's just. I think that it's just backwards now. We're going the wrong way. The failure of countries to build back greener after the COVID pandemic or the 2008 financial crash was not a good omen. Fossil fuel interests are now cynically using the war in Ukraine to lock in a high carbon future, which is no future at all. Assessing future oil and gas developments is challenging. The sector is complex and often secretive. Public information is scarce and hard to find and assess. You know what? So then nationalize these folks. Listen, if they're so crucial to the, if they're so crucial to the function of the country, and it seems to me like they're on the path of like making everything so much worse, then these folks are quite literally a threat, in my opinion, to our national security. So they should be anything that involves energy production should be nationalized at this point. Enough of that. We're not going, no matter what these companies say, every time they've been lying for decades and decades at a time. At this point, we can safely say that there's no reason to trust them. There's no reason to believe that the private sector is remotely capable of dealing with this. You are giving the arsonists you're leaving in charge of the fire department a bunch of arsonists. That's what you're doing. global team of The Guardian environment reporters has worked with leading think tanks analysts and academics across the world for over 5 months now, and now we can answer a series of questions that reveal the scale of the sector's plans. First, how much production is due to come from the projects that are likely to start drilling before the end of this crucial decade? Next, where exactly are these biggest projects around the world, the so-called carbon bombs that would explode the climate? We also followed the money, how much is going to be spent on oil and gas that cannot be burned safely, rather than invested in clean energy, and who benefits most? And who benefits most from fossil fuel subsidies that hide the true damage they cause? The answer to these key questions lead to an inescapable conclusion. If the projects go ahead, they will blow the world's rapidly shrinking cap on emissions that must be kept to enable a livable future known as the carbon budget. For all the promises made by many oil companies, the data shows they remain committed to their core business despite consequences. Yeah. The short-term expansion plans of oil and gas companies such as Exxon, Gazprom are colossal. The Guardian's investigation has found that the next 7 or so years, they are likely to start producing oil and gas from projects that they would ultimately deliver 192 billion barrels, the equivalent of a decade of today's emissions from China. This estimate was provided by an analyst at Urgewald who used data from Rystad Energy, the industry standard source but not publicly available. Their GoGel database includes 887 companies that explore for and produce oil and gas and covers 97% of short-term expansion plans. The companies that have made financial commitments to projects that will deliver 116 billion barrels, more than half of the 192 barrels total. They have invested heavily in the rest, including final development, engineering, and operation plans. Such investment makes these projects likely to go ahead, barring drastic government action. A third of the short-term expansion plans of oil and gas would come up from unconventional, riskier sources. These include fracking and ultra-deep offshore drilling, which are inherently more dangerous as the oil and gas companies drill deeper. The number of spills, injuries, and blowouts increase. Yep. Yeah, we're going to look back and wish we would have taken control of our own destiny and stopped the turmoil to continue, but in the moment it will look like a leftist aggressive power grab. Yeah. How's it going? Spread it forward. In the 192 billion barrels are split roughly 50-50 between liquids, including crude and oil and gas. Burning this would produce 73 billion tons of CO2, but methane routinely leaks from gas operations, and it is a powerful greenhouse gas, trapping 86 times more heat than CO2 over 20 years. Including this impact at a standard supply chain leak rate at 2.3% means the equivalent of 97 billion tons of CO2 added to the atmosphere and driving us faster towards climate hell. Nice, that's a good framing. That's a good framing. There's no better way of describing that. I mean, really. Look at that. State oil companies lead the Urgewald short-term expansion list, with Qatar Energy, Russia's Gazprom, and Saudi Aramco at the top 3. Half of Gazprom's projected expansions is in the fragile Arctic, though the long-term implications of Russia's war in Ukraine on its fossil fuel plans remain to be seen. The listed oil majors, ExxonMobil, Total, Chevron, Shell, BP, are all in the top 10. Unconventional and risky oil and gas production accounts for about 70% of the U.S. majors' total, while the proportion of fracking and ultra-deep water ranges from 30 to 60% for the European companies. Most oil and gas are just proceeding with business as usual. Wow, shocking. Niles Barch at Urgewald said, "Some just do not care." Yeah, that's... Wait, you think that something as silly as the impending climate disaster is going to stop these folks from making an extra, billion? No. Silly. Some do not see their responsibility because governments around the world let them proceed. That's true. Although, of course, these governments are often influenced by the industry. Also true. Two-thirds, it's what is it? Catch-22? Two-thirds of the 116 billion barrels of oil and gas projects companies are financially committed to are in the Middle East, Russia, North America, according to data provided by Rystad Energy. Nice. Australia is anticipated to be a big contributor with 3.5 billion barrels, more than from the whole of Europe, where fields are relatively depleted. A separate analysis by The Guardian, for The Guardian by Urgewald, on the average annual investment in oil and gas exploration over the past 3 years show that along with Shell, three but rarely scrutinized Chinese companies occupy the top four slots: PetroChina, China National Offshore Oil Corporation, and Sinopec. Sinopec? Seven of the top of these explorers are relying on fracking ultra-deepwater Arctic and tar sand developments for more than half of their expansion. Yikes. Possibly the worst of the worst. In my mind, it could play it out these 2 years ways. One, we tell the government we want these companies nationalized like we do already, but these companies holding the power that they do in the end make no changes. Warming gets out of hand. Warming crisis cause mass deaths of humans, animals, causing a very reactionary authoritarian takeover and terrible rights violations by becoming necessary in order to keep humanity alive. I mean, that is one scenario. Certainly. Daniel Ribeiro has been fighting plans for massive offshore pipeline and liquefied natural gas plants in Cabo Delgado province, Mozambique, since it was mooted more than 15 years ago. This scheme, which would lead to a huge increase in carbon emissions on one of the poorest and most climate-vulnerable countries, is backed by more than £1 billion for the UK government and has one of the biggest oil and gas corporations circling, scenting another huge payday. It is creating a massive amount of disruption for local fishing and subsistence farmers who are being moved off their land, said Ribeiro from the local Justica Ambiental campaign group. But if it goes ahead and countries like Mozambique are set off on fossil fuel track, it will be a global disaster. We cannot forget tackling the climate crisis. We will all suffer. That's true. Research shared exclusively with The Guardian has identified Cabo Delgado development as one of 194 carbon bombs, which, unless stopped, will drive catastrophic climate breakdown around the world. The term carbon bomb has been widely used in climate circles for the past decade to describe large fossil fuel projects or other big sources of carbon. The new research sets a specific definition: projects capable of pumping at least 1 billion tons of CO2 emissions over their lifetime. Projects identified include the new drilling wells springing up in Canadian wilderness as part of the vast Montney Play oil and gas development, and the huge Northfield gas fields in Qatar, named in the study as the biggest new oil and gas carbon bomb of the world. This study, led by Kajal Kune from the University of Leeds in the UK, published in the Journal of Energy Policy, found that just a few months after the world's politicians positioned themselves as climate leaders during COP26 conference, oh god, this is such a good name, in Glasgow, were given the green light to massive global expansion of oil and gas production, the scientists warned would push civilization on a brink. Assad Rehman, a lead climate justice activist in the UK who was at the forefront of a global network of indigenous activists and civil society campaigners in Glasgow, accused the US, Canada, and Australia of rank hypocrisy. True. Or we could actually get change, or we actually do get a change made. Companies are forced to sacrifice profits for sustainability, and we slide into a slightly warm, with less extreme conditions, normal. I mean, that would be unironically the best case scenario. But I'm not gonna lie, it don't look good. These countries are single-handedly undermining efforts to curtail global emissions and ignoring their responsibility to phase out fossil fuels rapidly and justly. I agree. He said it was the poorest and most vulnerable who are suffering. Agreed. Together, these projects would produce 664 gigatons of CO2, swallowing up the world's entire carbon budget. That's a good meme. Only the colonial mindset of political leaders in rich countries can make the brutal calculation that interests of fossil fuel giants and their billions in profit is more important than the lives of people who are overwhelmingly black, brown, and poor. Together, these projects would produce 646 billion tons of CO2, the study says, swallowing the world's entire carbon budget. More than 60% of these schemes are already operating. Yeah. Kune, the director of Leave It in the Ground initiative, said the first instance, 40% of projects had not yet started production, must be stopped if the world was to avoid sliding ever more quickly towards catastrophe, adding they should be a prominent focus of the global climate protest movement in the months and years ahead. The oil gas industry is continuing to plan these huge projects in the face of a burning planet. The ambitious targets of the Paris Agreement were apparently not enough to make them question their business case because they're not interested in that. These carbon bombs are the single biggest indicator that we are not trying hard enough. The study is based on data from Rystad Energy, but rather than focusing on total barrels, it identifies mega projects potentially responsible for the biggest emissions. Sheesh. According to its research, the U.S. is leading source of potential emissions. Nice. Its 22 carbon bombs include conventional drilling and fracking that span the deep waters of the Gulf of Mexico to the foothills and Front Range in Colorado to the Permian Basin. Together, they have the potential to emit 140 billion tons of CO2, almost 4 times than the entire world emits each year. Nice. Good meme. Saudi Arabia is the second biggest potential emitter after the US with 107 billion tons, followed by Russia, Qatar, Iraq, Canada, China, and Brazil. Australia, widely condemned by international leaders as a laggard in addressing climate crisis, ranks 16. Churnside said dissenting indigenous voices were too often ignored when decisions were made about new oil and gas infrastructure that would lock in emissions for decades and desecrate culturally significant sites, which in some cases have stood for tens of thousands of years. It's about time we listen to the First Nations people because we have been here a long time. A long, long time. Our spirit in this land will never rest. It needs protection. I agree. Either scientists have spent 30 years working on this issue and have got it all wrong, or big oil CEOs know better, or behind a veil of concern, they have complete disregard for the more climate-vulnerable communities, typically poor, people of color, and far away from their lives. Equally worrying, they are disinterested in their own children's future. Yeah, because it seems like they believe that they are not going to be affected. It seems like they have this mentality where it's, they're going to be fine. Not so. Not so. More and more I'm relying on hope unless I am seeing viable solutions actually being followed up on and used widely enough to make a difference. Yeah, the reality is it's not looking good. What can I say? What can I say? We gotta finish this here. Well, I think we can do the TLDR. This makes a ton of money. Billions. Trillions. Overall, international oil companies are making the biggest bets with almost 40% of projected investments incompatible with 1.65 degrees. ExxonMobil is particularly high at 56%. The national oil company average is 17, although 56% of Petrobras' planned capital expenditure is incompatible with 1.65 degrees Celsius. Yeah, they're continuing to act in business as usual because the profits and subsidies and all that support continue to come in. That's basically what this is suggesting. Yeah, fix it all myself. It's all up to me, all right? Folks, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. I do want to thank everybody for hanging out here. Please make sure you hit the follow button. You get 5 free emotes. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTubes. It does help us out. Just take 5 seconds. Hit the big red subscribe button. Join the Discord. There's some awesome stuff there. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Alright, folks. Yes, please take a second to join the YouTubes, alright? Thank you, Spread It Forward. Thank you, Darknet. Thank you, Heat. I appreciate all that. As always, folks, hang tight. Thank you all for the support. I really appreciate it. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.